Okay, welcome to the Dover Community Center Building Committee meeting on October 7th, 2024. I'm Dick Malcolm, the chairman of the Building Committee. Following the guidance issued by the state in 2020 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conference technology. To join the meeting by video conferencing using a computer, tablet, or phone, please go to the town website for sign-in information. This meeting is being recorded, and I will do a roll call of committee members present. David Billings.
Here.
Luciana Birdie.
I'm here.
And Barry Goldman. We're doing a roll call. And you're muted, Barry. You're still muted, Barry. There we go.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We know you're present, and that gives us a quorum. In an effort to not to hold up the contractor, M. O'Connor, to hold up their construction schedule, the building committee, we scheduled this special meeting to review potential change orders and make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen regarding these PCOs. Al Estevez from Collier's Project Leaders, who is the town's owner's project manager, will give us a presentation of these PCOs. So Al, if you could start the presentation.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So I did send this memo. We usually put one together for all the PCOs for the Board of Selectmen. And the idea is, once we, based on the outcome tonight, send these to Michael Blanchard and the Board of Selectmen. So there's a total of 8 PCOs that we want to present to everyone tonight. They are listed here. The total value of all the PCOs together is $79,000. There is no time extension associated with these PCOs. And we've reviewed these PCOs in depth with the design team, and their engineers were appropriate. And we recommend approval to maintain the schedule. What it means in terms of contingency, so that's, 80,000 is about 3% of the contingency. Should all these PCOs be approved as presented tonight, we are looking to have about 1.7 million left in contingency. Obviously, we have a number of potential PCOs out there that we're still working through. And the total of potential exposure is 469,000. Worst case scenario, say those get approved, we're looking at 1.2 million, 1.28 million left in contingency, which is about 52% of the original contingency. Right now, as of August, the contractor is about 56% billed. We actually just received their September invoice. They're about 68% billed. So that's to say that the contractor's billed at about 68%, and we're tracking worst case scenario 52% left in contingency. So we can go ahead and get started with the first one. This is one that we've been going back and forth quite a while, and I'm definitely going to need a little bit of help on this one. Katie, from yourself, and Igli, I know you've been working on this one as well. This is related to the roof drain. It's 20,800. And big picture, this is captures the costs associated with reworking of the insulation, the cover board, the roofing membrane around the 22 roof drains, in order for the insulation to align with the roof drains. So again, there's been a lot of back and forth on this one. Ultimately, the roof drains that were installed were per the contract documents, and the contractor saying that there was no blocking or anything shown to essentially make up for insulation where it needed to be extended. You know, after the insulation had been installed and the drains, that's when the team realized that they needed to be some reworking of that insulation. And if I do have all the PCOs open here, so if you wanna dig into details, we can certainly do that. Do we have any questions, or do we need to dig into this one a little bit more?
I
Is
think
most
You
of
want to
that,
do it one by one or do the questions at the end, Dick?
let's hit these one by one.
All right.
And I think, of course, Al, if you could kind of elaborate on the why this, you know, why this has come about.
Sure. So I mean, the contract documents showed the insulation tying into the roof drain, and the roof drains were installed. And then the insulation was installed after that, the insulation together with the cover board, and then everything was kind of temped. The TPO membrane was temped in just to be watertight, knowing that, you know, knowing that there was gonna have to be some rework because the insulation wasn't aligning with that roof drain. And we looked at the option of essentially extending that roof drain rather than reworking the insulation down so that those two could meet. That was more expensive. And so, you know, it was cheaper to go the route to have that insulation reworked. And again, this is the contractors arguing that the contract documents did not show any blocking or any sort of mechanism to adjust that roof drain. And so their argument is this was built per the contract documents, and those two weren't aligning. And there's a lot of history to this one, but yeah.
You should know the drawings better than, or almost as good. What do you think? Did they build by the drawings or not? Because
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
difficult for, I haven't seen the drawing, the specs or anything. It's difficult for me to make a decision, but that's where you come, right?
yeah,
Or Colliers
yeah.
in general.
Yeah, this was definitely one that I struggle with a little bit, because I know that the contractor is saying, you know, hey, you guys are not showing any blocking. You're not showing, you know, that those roof drains are extending. You're showing those aligning. And so they based it off of that. You know, the other aspect to this is that the specs did call for this roofing to be, you know, Class A rated. Ultimately, it didn't need to be Class A rated. So the pitch of that area around the rings, you know, could have changed. So the contractor could have, you know, adjusted that pitch, but because the specs called for a Class A rating where it doesn't allow that pitch to change, they were sort of stuck with that. So I do see the contractor's argument here, but I will admit that this one is certainly, you know, a trickier one than most other PCOs, where it's usually pretty clear. Yes, no, that's absolutely, you know, contractor owned. No, that, you know, that's clearly, you know, discrepancy in the draw, you know, etc.
Al, did we specify the elevations of the drains? Or is
Did we
it just
specify-
high point, low point?
Katie, could you help me with that one?
Sure. David, are you asking about a specific elevation within the whole building, or
Yeah, let's show the detail. Is the contractor owns coordination of his work. He owns coordination of the insulation and the roofing and the plumbing.
so
Why is this a contractor coordination issue?
So I think there's a couple of things that are happening, and ultimately I'll pick up where Al started. So the design detail showed a roof drain that had an extension of 4 inches. So we would have 4 inches adjacent to it, and it would slope just like any other roof slope. Intentionally, the sump area is steeper than the rest of the roof because that helps the water migration. So everything was submitted, you know, for plumbing wise and installed ahead of the roofing coordination and roofing submittals. So there was a lag in that. There were, you know, multiple rounds of back and forth to say, hey, there's some language in the shop drawings that was not aligning with the other drawings. So that, as Al said, this went through several rounds of review to figure out what the coordination was. Ultimately, we had called out a Class A fire exposure rating, which caps the 1/4 inch slope. So for our particular project, that's not a requirement, but it has to for the building. Unfortunately, the testing mechanism requires that slope. So by the time we got to that part of the coordination to figure out that that was not required and the roofer could come back and amend the insulation, the issue was the plumbing drains had been installed, and the majority of the roofing had been, as Al said, had been temped out. So ultimately, removing the requirement of the Class A allowed us to have a steeper slope to get to that point. But realistically, it was just, the plumbing drains, the plumber started work obviously well before the roofer. And by the time the coordination happened, there was just a lag in that work.
Again, doesn't the contractor own coordination?
Yes. And I realized I didn't answer your first question about the elevation. I don't think that we called out an elevation within, the project as far as, inches off of the deck. The plumbing drain was, has a 4-inch extension, which means it caps out at 4 inches. It couldn't go higher than that. The rest of the roof slopes all really come, starting from, low to high and within that slope.
But we had insulation shop drawings showing the slope.
Correct.
in the
Ye-
thickness.
Yep, and this is kind of one of the doctor drawings. So within the roofing shop drawings, this was something that we kept asking, saying, hey, hold on, our slope, our sump detail is a little bit different than yours. We need to, this is not being, the detail wasn't aligning with the warranty. So it was really asking the questions about the warranty, like why are you suggesting that the slope has to be different? Was where we got to the part where the manufacturer said the number is coming from the testing agency. It's not the message we were hearing was that it was coming from the manufacturer. So that was, our understanding that it was coming from a warranty issue. Really, it's coming from the testing mechanism. It's an ASTM testing.
The wind uplift, I mean, what testing are you talking about?
It's the fire exposure. So ASTM E108, I believe, but let me double check that I had that right. So generally the fire exposure has to do with the ability for the roofing material to be blowing off of the roof or extending the fire.
Uplift.
Yeah, it's part of that testing, but yeah, and one of them is the uplift, correct?
Okay, is this a town requirement for?
It is not, no. So I mean,
We're
ultimately,
going around in circles. All right. I mean, I would have called this a contractor issue, but I guess we could.
Well, it sounds like it could have been avoidable. And
Well, these all
therefore,
could be avoidable, but that's not necessarily the issue.
well, is that coordination when something is avoidable if
Well, it depends on whose coordination. I mean, if it's a design coordination, then it's an owner cost. If it's contractor coordination, which he needs to coordinate between his roofing shop drawings and his plumbing shop drawings.
Right.
But so I gotta look to our management team to tell us which one it is.
Yeah, like I said, I think this one, there's just so many parts to this one. I think ultimately, there is some rework that has to be done here. And we ended up amending that Class A requirement that was spec'd out that wouldn't allow the contractor to change that slope. And so, because, we work with the fire department and they said, yes, we don't need a Class A rating, we were able to change that pitch. But by that time, we needed to, keep going with this roof drains, get this work done.
Well, I guess it has, who asked for a Class A rating?
That's what was spec'd out.
Well, why? That's usually an insurance issue. Is there an FM insurance requirement
It,
by the
it,
town?
it, this is not something that we received from the town. I don't know if this was necessarily a belt and suspenders that was included, or if this stemmed from, some previous roofing materials that we had earlier in design phases that just didn't get, picked up in that coordination. We had slate at one point.
This
That's
is
the part
flat
that's,
roof.
I'm sorry,
This is the flat roof, right?
correct. This is the TPO.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. All right. I guess this could have been solved a little easier if some questions had been asked, but we are kind of where we are. So I take it this change has happened and they spent the time. The roof is done, right?
I believe, the roof is done. This had been temped in, without this change, knowing that, they were gonna have to go back and do some of this rework. But they still had to, make the roof watertight. And so that was all, that TPO was all sealed up. They have to go back now and redo this. I do believe that based on, the fact that we were gonna present this, this had been reviewed by the OPM team, the architects team, and we were going to recommend this to the building committee. I do believe that they proceeded with this work, just because they absolutely need to keep moving on this, at risk, knowing that.
Let me ask you another question. What exactly are they doing? Are they cutting out the insulation and creating a pan, or are they raising the drain body?
Yeah, so all the roof drains, I forget exactly what size, but around it, that's where you start pitching in a little bit at a steeper slope. They're basically cutting open that TPO again. They have to essentially this insulation, it's like a 4-foot by maybe like a 2-foot area at 22 different locations. They have to redo the pitch of that insulation.
So they're creating a sump.
Yeah, they're a steeper sump so that it can, the insulation can tie into the drains that are installed.
So there's no they're not redoing the plumbing, the height of the.
Correct. We looked at that option instead of reworking all the insulation to extend all the roofing drains, so that we could still tie into that insulation. But that was more expensive.
It's just a
So-
collar extension. This should be relatively simple, because it's just screws in.
We
You're saying
did,
that a
we-
collar extension is gonna be more expensive than cutting open and redoing the insulation?
we did evaluate that option and it was, yes, just slightly more. So, to answer Dick's question, we did look at this as if this was, some roofing work, some plumbing work, or roofing and plumbing work. And of the options of either additional blocking or an extension to that roof drain. As far as, touching all the fittings. So there's 11 drains and each drain also has an overflow. So as Al said, there's 22 locations. This one was actually more affordable than the roofing drain extension kit.
Yeah. All right.
Some of the other ones will be more straightforward than this one, I promise. Yeah, this was we've been going back and forth on this one for a while. So that there's just been a lot of,
Okay.
a lot to that one. Any more questions on this
No.
one? Okay, this one, May late payment, $1,900. We actually, I think the contractor first was asking like 5,000, but the numbers, the dates were incorrect. After we submitted the invoice had been certified, approved, once it was submitted to the town, my understanding is there was some sort of like miscommunication on the town side of things, and it took a little bit longer to get that payment to M. O'Connor, which is why we have they're asking for interest on that late payment. To avoid this going forward, what we've done, what we were doing before is mailing the checks out to the contractor. And what we're doing now is establishing a designated place. We can do this per MGL so that the contractor can just come pick up that check as soon as it's cut, so that we don't have that delay with the picking up the checks. And I'm also working with the town administrator on their sort of like payment schedule to just ensure that, based on when the building committee meeting is, and we would get that approved, the timelines work. But we actually reviewed this with Nina, the town legal counsel, and she thinks that it's a legitimate per MGL, legitimate change order. Again, there was some miscommunication on the town side of things. The first time that this happened, so I don't foresee this happening again.
So Connor's really asking for interest?
Yes,
Well, okay.
yes,
Uh,
yeah,
what rate are they? It's 3% over the bank rate? Which is the
yeah,
law.
3 point, yeah, yeah,
So it's
8.5%.
due, 15 days after the certification?
Yeah,
Correct.
Certification by the BOS or,
It's actually 15 days, not after the pay app is certified. I thought it was, but I went to read the MGL language. It's 15 days after the final pay app is received. So we receive it, then we have to review it to make sure, hey, make sure that they haven't changed anything, since we approved it. And then it goes to the architect to get certified. Then it comes to Colliers to process it, to get a stamp, get a stamp, approval stamp, and then it goes out to the town. So we did that in a matter of, like 2 days, that entire process. Then he went over to the town, and then
yeah. we
actually
need-
it goes to the building committee, goes to the building committee, and then and then it goes over to the town.
well, what's the actual act of certification? When does that take place?
So the certification happens once, we get the draft version, we look at it, we give the contractor our comments, they revise it and then send the final one. Once they send the final one, we'll look at it again, make sure nothing else has changed, and then the next step will be for it to be certified by the architect.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
technically it's the architect certification, but
okay, so it's like the Prompt Payment Act, in that
yeah, it is.
you've
Yeah.
got
I
some,
usually push back the contractors and, file a claim if you want. Pay it at the
yeah,
end.
we don't want to make a, sort of be a precedent, in case where, we want to dispute, some of the,
Yeah,
change orders.
well, this is not change order. This is approved contract value. So,
That
I would
millions.
I'd still push back anyway.
Yeah,
David, we can certainly do that if that's, we could just push this down the line, if
Been
that's.
doing it 35 years. I've never paid interest. And believe me, city of Boston will take 90 days to pay you. So,
Yeah, I thought the town had 30 days to pay.
no, but the law gives the state 30 days. Municipalities have 15 under the law. But no one does. No one pays it.
It's pretty tough to get this,
Yeah.
turned around in 15
And you
days.
gotta go through 2 separate committees, plus a procurement process. So. I mean, if they're gonna be that way, then,
was
I'd
the
let 'em
check,
know that.
placed in the mail, in time? Was it actually put in the mail?
No, so the delay wasn't because of necessarily the mailing. It was the getting it approved, on the town side of things and cutting the check that took a little bit longer.
Well, I haven't read, chapter 39, section
Yeah.
39K, but, some of these, statutes are a little ambiguous.
Yeah, this one is
It's, um,
too.
You think that one is pretty clear, Dave?
No, actually, defining exactly what certification means is a little up in the air. It doesn't really state it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't
So
say
I usually say
certification.
it's when the town approves it. Which is after the board of selectmen,
Right.
but they can dispute it. That's why I tell them, file a claim. They want to pursue it, they can do that.
So that would be the outside date that you would aim at, when it's actually approved by the selectmen.
Well, it doesn't really say that.
After receipt from the contractor. So it doesn't say certification, and I thought it was when it was certified, but what it says, it's after receipt from the contractor.
But you gotta approve you gotta approve the receipt. It's when the town approves it. That's what I always do.
Well, it sounds like it's arguable, so if you want to, not set a precedent and hold it up, I guess you have an argument.
Yeah, and we looked at this with Nina, and she thought that, you know, the contractor was entitled to this interest, but she
We
also
probably
agreed.
own it. That doesn't mean we give it to them. Nah, that's not true. Yeah. They want the $1,900 scheme of things. Let's keep it moving.
Yes, Dave, Haviland.
It seemed to me that this interest was almost a reaction to our pushing on them on the time. So to me, it is more of a tit for tat type reaction. And I definitely agree with we should not be setting a precedent here. If they want this PCO, it certainly isn't going to hold the project up. Yes, I agree it's 1,900, but I don't want them dinging us every time we're 15 minutes late issuing a check, given the fact that it was the summer. There is the review process, and there are 2 committees that have to meet to do this. What I'm interested in is who is the awarding authority under that wording that you had up, Al? Is the awarding authority you, the building committee, or the Board of Selectmen? Because if the awarding authority is the Board of Selectmen, we have more time, and that 6 days the clock doesn't start until after the awarding authority. I read it really quickly, and here it is again.
Well, we've gotten a couple of different answers. One of the answers was it was certification by the architect. But if we're talking about the BOS, then it would be a later date, right?
That's my question. I don't know. And, maybe we should reconfirm with Nina. Nina, as great as she is, there are times when she's busy and she's going to just give this a cursory review and say, all right, we owe them interest. But do we? And again, since we are in a dispute of at least several months at this point, I think we just don't pay this until all this goes into one big bucket. And this would be in their favor, and we're going to have some in our favor, and let's see where the chips fall. That would be, my humble opinion. Thank you for hearing me.
Yep, thank you, David. Okay, any more discussion on this, on the PCO 43?
No.
So Al, what I want to do is I want to backtrack, and I'd like to vote on each of these separately. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack and is there a motion to approve PCO 41, adjusting roof drains per ASI 025 in the amount of $20,801.93? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor of the motion, I will poll the board. David Billings,
Yes.
Luciano,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Okay, now let's go to PCO 43. So is there a motion to recommend for approval? PCO 43, May late payment in the amount of $1,905.55. Is there a motion?
I would motion to table it for future action.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Is that to take?
Second.
Okay, I will, we'll have a vote for those in favor of tabling the motion, the motion to recommend for approval PCO 43. Pull the board, David Billings,
Yes.
Luciana,
Yes.
Yes.
Barry, and I am a yes as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, Al, next.
Right, next we have PCO 45. This is $2,375, and I categorize this one as an owner request. It's a betterment to the town. And part of it is essentially after the mill workshop drawings were approved, we're recommending providing solid surface instead of PLAM or plastic laminate at a number of millwork sills. It's much better product, much better lasting. And then there's also a part of it that it's adding locks to 3 doors to secure items. We can get into more details if we need to.
What is the solid surface?
So I can pick this part up, Dick. So for the majority of the pavilion space, we have a solid surface at the windowsills. So it's a kind of an off-white cream, stone that's at the windows. There are 3 locations that we had called out as more in line with the rest of the building, which is so painted wood. So the majority of the building on the interior side, you've got drywall returns and a painted wood windowsill. So as Al said, as part of the shop drawing review, we flagged 3 locations, mostly in the cafe, where we said, you know what, there's a good chance that someone's going to set down a cup of coffee. The painted wood is totally fine. It will, likely need to get wiped up and cleaned. So we thought the solid surface was a reasonable thing to propose as an upgrade. So the numbers here would be the delta between painted wood and solid surface. And Al, I don't know if you have this PCO open, because I can just point to the plan if that's helpful. Go to like page 7 or 8. Yeah, there, that's perfect. Thank you. So there's the window that's within the kitchen, sort of at the top of the pavilion, and then the 2 windows that are in the cafe, so both kind of facing the fields and then also facing the vestibule. So those are the areas that, particularly in the cafe, we said, people are going to be hanging out and sitting there, and then there's all the millwork, which is where you have a coffee station or snacks or whatever. So that was sort of part 1 of this PCO, and the second part is that millwork in the cafe. So there's a series of so there's a sink and there's some cabinetry, and knowing that there's going to be lots of different uses in this building, including we have called out for the potential for a coffee machine or something, as far as whatever operations determine. We're recommending a couple of locks. Al, if you go a couple pages out, I think it's slide 13 in this set, you can see the elevation of the, there you go, beautiful, thank you. So that's the millwork. The areas that are stars, we said, hey, these would be great to have some locks so that, if this is a Parks and Rec or COA or whomever wants to be buying Keurigs or just saving, things for part of storage, that way they're all contained in this one location. And, it makes more sense to have those installed ahead of time. But they were not part of the documents before. And otherwise, as Al said, these are moving forward. The millwork is being made. This is a betterment that we wanted to suggest as far as, the operations, really how it'll help the impact of the building.
All right, thank you, Katie. I assume the solid surface is not going to, it won't get stained by like coffee or a wine glass or anything.
Good point. So we have the solid surface in lots of other places as a countertop surface. So you're right. It's I think it's going to be a little bit more durable in the sense of hiding the sins of being used.
Okay, so the solid surface is it? What is it? Is it a stone? Is it a?
Sorry, I just realized I don't have a sample in front of me, so I can't pull it out. I believe it's Corian material.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. I just curious about the material.
Yeah, it's applied. It's much better lasting, and it doesn't delaminate like PLAM. Sometimes it's very easy for it's just a layer of plastic on top of MDF usually, and it's just a much better product.
Okay.
And I guess I'll say in the end, Dick, these are both things that we considered to be a betterment. This is we're graduating the scope that we already have. These are things that we're recommending because it will help the operations of the building. But otherwise, we have all this scope covered. We have millwork that's actually in fabrication right now, and the window sills are will be installed probably in the upcoming months.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you for picking up on that, making that recommendation. Any other discussion on PCO 45 millwork changes?
Nope.
Okay. If not, Is there a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen, PCO 45, millwork changes per SD review in the amount of $2,375.52?
Motion,
Second,
Okay, those in favor of the motion, I'll poll the board. David Billings,
yes.
Luciana,
Yes,
Barry,
yes.
and I am a yes as well. Okay, Al, PCO 48.
Yeah, PCO 48, this one was resulted from an ASI, that's an architect supplemental instruction that was issued that clarified the intersection from the 1910 building to the connector piece, specifically at the north vestibule. We can get into the details. The clarifications added concrete that needs to be placed at that fieldstone foundation. It added additional brick, light gauge metal framing, ACM, and drywall in order to finish that intersection. And the amount is for $23,000. I can go to that PCO. Like I said, there's a number of trades that were involved here. We got the mason, we got gypsum drywall, we have the ACM panels, storefront changes, and then concrete work as well. Let's see if we have a drawing that shows that. I don't know, Katie, if there's like a good drawing that we can show what was.
If you want to zoom in on the photo that's kind of on the right of the page, but sort of in the middle. Sorry, it's within that cloud. Thank you. So,
good.
so ultimately what you can see is, as I said, we had the rubble foundation, really at grade. Then we get into the granite block. We have the brick, and obviously the brick is corbelling and doing some ins and outs. And then when we get up to about the first, top of the first floor, the second floor, the wall then steps back because it goes from 4 wides into 3. So we also have the water struck brick there, which is kind of the curved one. So there's a series of different sections, really, building conditions here. And ultimately, we're trying to connect the new construction to the existing building. Some of this, I think most of this was generally understood based on the previous documents. Some of it was better to be seen once the previous 1970s building was demolished. There were a couple of things that were attached to this corner. Some other, concrete walls had been poured on, but ultimately this is just more fussy, detailed work to connect the new building to the existing one, both continuing the envelope and the air barrier, and then also obviously continuing it all the way up. So what you don't see in this picture is kind of extenuation of the metal panel that goes up, and then tying in that roof detail. So what we have here is just to the left off this page is a storefront. So we've got glass and doors, and we're trying to connect something that's very linear and straight with an existing building which has lots of ins and outs. So as Al said, basically the detailing, there's some concrete that's being poured at the base to mitigate the rubble, and then obviously there's some additional framing that's going to go around to support that. A little bit of ACM metal panel, and that's actually what's above the storefront system. And the brickwork is really just toothing in some pieces that work within the existing corbels and brick detailing. And that's probably, that's what some of these other plan details are, but this photo probably really just shows the condition.
So from the contractor standpoint, none of it was. They knew that they had to tie this in, but it was never shown how to do it on the plan.
So all of these that you see here are new details that were issued as part of this ASI. So as far as we have storefront scope, we have repointing the existing building, we have other details as far as that scope, but there wasn't something, as specific as this where we, went through all levels to say this is all the kind of ins and outs of what is needed to connect these buildings together. So as part of our review, we did go through and looked at this set and highlighted the scope that was contract owned, this, and could eliminate, that right off the bat. So the pluses and minuses here are, like I said, more of the kind of fussiness, the metal panel, the storefront, there's other work, even the drywall. A lot of that was contract owned, but some of this is reworking it and really working with the existing condition.
Okay, so then a question to Colliers, then in your analysis of this of this PCO and the 22K or 23K, did you really flush out? I mean, the contractor obviously knew they needed to make a connection. Was that accounted for in this in arriving at this number?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know Igley was going back and forth on this one quite a bit. He was digging more into details with Katie. But yeah, that's something we would definitely, because we have to compare this against what's inferable in the drawing, because typically the contractor owns something that is inferable. And so part of the exercise is addressing like what's inferable from the drawings versus what's legitimately something that's new and added to the scope. And I know there was a lot of back and forth on this one. Eagle, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, we went back and forth with them for a number of weeks, just going on over the details. And then when they submitted the original scope on it, just kind of having the subcontractors clarify what they owned on the original drawings, and making sure that they weren't essentially double dipping from the new work to the old work.
Okay. Any other questions on this PCO? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to recommend for approval to the selectmen PCO 48 building intersection ASI-020 in the amount of $22,998.56? Is there a motion? Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion?
Second, I can do it.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Luciana. Okay,
You-
those in favor of the motion, I'll poll the committee. David,
Yes,
Luciana,
Yes,
Barry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, thank you. PCO 50.
Yep, PCO 50, it's for 1688 and 6 cents. Essentially what that is, it's resulted from ASI 21, which added some true wall flashing at the brick walls at the mechanical room and the connector. And this is needed to tie in the roof edge, the turn up detail. Go to that one.
So Al, if you go back one page, I can point out to this. It was, there you go. So at the kind of the second section from the right, if you zoom in kind of in the middle, there's a cloud around the call out. So this is areas of the gym that are tall with adjacent to a low roof. So as far as the typical brick detailing, what we had here, so we've got scope by waterproofing, dampproofing, caulking, additional scope by Mason, who's doing the majority of through wall flashing. The revision here is to add a two-piece reglet that's really connecting between those two trades. And so this is provided by the roofer, and we're handing off to the mason. So the mason's mortaring it in. So it is some additional labor for them to install the flashing that the roofer is handing them. And you can see here is that in contrast to other details in the building, this is very typical to what you'd have at grade. However, we do have occupied space below. So we did want to make sure that, this is a more sensitive area that, we want to make sure that we're, this is a betterment to that detail to upgrade it so that it's really tying all this in. And then if the next page is, just a call out of that, but ultimately it's, this is labor, this is time for the mason to take the riglet from the roofer and mortar it in, as opposed to, kind of doing their trades separately.
So this is more of a belts and suspenders. This is a betterment.
It is, I would say, this kind of the question came up initially of, what's the intent here? So we did vet this and say that we believe that the scope was owned. There's multiple trades doing some work. There was a little bit of kind of two trades getting to the point and saying, okay, who does that scope in the middle? And that's where this, this two-piece reglet was, it seemed the best fit for this particular area. And I don't think we have a plan here, but as Al said, it's basically either side of the gym. So we do have a decent amount of low roof that is coming up to a higher roof.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen PCO 50, ASI number 21, revised roof flashing in the amount of $1,688.06? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Those in favor of the motion, I will poll the committee. David Billings,
yes,
Luciana,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you. Okay, Al?
The next PCO is PCO 51. That also is a result of an ASI that was issued. ASI 22 is for 14,828.38 cents. This ASI essentially clarified the elevator shaft exterior details above the gym at the northwest and southwest intersections. And the work included reworking of the previously installed parapet. So there was some rework there at the elevator shaft by the roofer. There's also some work by the mason to add some brick insulation, and then closing the parapet back up with plywood and flashing. That's PCO number 51. And then this is some of the area. These are the details that were revised as part of that ASI, and showing some of the areas where the rework had to take place. Katie, if you want to add, or Eagle, if you guys want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, we went kind of back and forth a little bit with M. O'Connor on this one, just to kind of show the work from the subcontractors, more so on the backup. I realized that this was issued in an ASI. So Katie, if you want to speak to the design piece, but yeah, I mean, we went through the backup through a number of revisions with that, so they can clarify their work.
Yeah, I guess Al, if you could just kind of zoom in on the area that's clouded. So as you said, all of these are new sections, more specific detailing to show the overlap of various trades. This is the majority of this work really is the roofer just being able to tie in those connections. So, as far as the work that was owned, there was quite a bit of work that's owned as far as the contract scope. What's being shown here is tying in and doing some of the fussy detailing. I will say on the west elevation, we don't have brick. So in order to, really tie the brick the roofing waterproofing up onto that wall that does not have brick, we did add some framing and some plywood, and then also wrapping that in from the side. So as far as the roofing scope, and this one's a good one, there was a little bit of demolition of the parapet wall that had been built to be able to pull that back and then tie in. So, this is a whole lot of 2D drawings. It's kind of hard to see this in 3D, but really we have the gym wall to the left, the elevator in front of us, and we're trying to connect several connection points and different various slopes in one spot, all really, and it this is around the elevator. It has nothing to do with the actual elevator inside. It's just closing in that shaft.
So my question is I'm just curious why it wasn't detailed in the original bid set.
So I think that we had the majority of the scope covered as far as the typical detailing. I will say the west elevation, I would say, is atypical. We didn't have brick there. It's a short wall just above the gym roof. We didn't have steel there to hold brick. So that's the atypical detail here. And that's the one that's on the upper right-hand side that's showing, you know, kind of closing it out with, oh, actually, is the one west? Sorry, thank you. That one's it. So some extension of the insulation and the waterproofing. I would say, you know, as far as the project set, it's always ideal to have every particular detail of every possible option. The reality is that's not really possible. So that's the short answer, is that we, you know, these are some of these were part of typical details. That west elevation was not part of the set.
And that's exposed to public view? I mean, is that why we got
Oh,
brick?
good question.
opposed to just
Yeah,
rubber?
so the elevator is just to the east of the gym. So what you're seeing
Yeah.
is really just the TPO that's really just exposed to the gym roof. So it's not really, I mean, it would be visible to you if you were standing on the roof. But
Yeah,
from
no,
grade,
that I'm asking is why is there brick at all? Why isn't it just wrapped in rubber?
got it.
Or
The
TPO?
the other three sides of the elevator are wrapped in brick because you can see those from grade. So, and I actually, let's see.
Okay.
I don't think I have an
Well, there
elevation
is in
in
the middle.
this view. Let's see. There we, oh, actually, you know what, Al, can
Go
you
to the floor plan.
go back one page just to the
Yeah.
cover sheet. It's not quite the right view, but if you zoom into the yeah, so
Oh,
sorry, if you can go up to the perspective. I'm sorry, I'm pointing with my hand. I'm not using real words. Okay, so what you see that's in the back, that's the darker brick. So where the window is, that's where the stair goes. And then that
Yeah.
dark brick is, I have the elevator machine room. And then behind it, that little thing that's popping up, that's like a hat, that's the elevator shaft. So we have
It's
brick on
like
on
8
three
feet
sides, but not.
back of the of that fascia wall.
Uh,
Yeah, you
yeah,
really
just
ever
about.
gonna see?
Yep. If you want to stand in this spot at the end of the project and we do the rendering.
Well, we'll see. All right. I
So-
take it, it's
so
already done.
when we're looking at the east side, so I will say the west side, which is the one that you can't see from here, that's the one that I was saying does not have brick. So,
Okay.
you know, that's tying in, you know, the gym roof on the other side. And really just, it's a lot of planes coming together at one place, just trying to tie them all
Okay.
together back to the waterproofing.
Okay.
Thank you for driving, Al.
oh yeah, they got it.
So, I mean, just so, this is scope, which is not owned by, M. O'Connor.
Yeah, we coordinated what's, you know, because they did own something, but we coordinated what's new versus what's not new. So there was a lot of back and forth on that.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on PCO 51? Okay, if not, is there a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen PCO 51? ASI number 22, elevator shaft changes in the amount of $14,828.38. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, those in favor of the motion, I'll poll the committee. David,
Yes.
Luciano,
Yes.
Barry,
yes.
and I am a yes as well. Thank you. Okay, Al, next, PCO 55.
Yep, so PCO 55 is for just over $10,000, and this is associated with the 1910 building. It is around the existing wood fascia trim. It's deteriorated and the color will not match the new gutters that are going to be installed. And so the project team is recommending, prepping, priming, and painting this wood trim to match the PVC trim, or the new PVC trim around the 1910 windows. Yeah, we can get into the details. Yeah, so this one's gonna show what that trim work is, the one that would be prepped
So we
and
didn't
painted.
have that being painted?
We didn't, no, it's a good question. It was scope that we
Okay.
didn't have in the contract set. So
Alright.
you can see it's a new gutter and we have some new vents in the existing and we do say, basically, amend the existing. But you've got the fascia, the soffit and the trim that's going along the brick. That's generally the scope. And we have, 3 sides of the building. So I think, this came from the GC and I think it was a good question to say, hey, before we get too far, do you want to, are you sure you don't want us to paint this? That's really how this came up. And so, as Al said, there's some gutter work, there's some vents and other things. Given the scope, we, I think it was something in the order of like 60 man hours for the,
Mhm.
going through the, doing the takeoffs with some lifts. And it seemed, again, this is definitely a betterment. It seemed like this is a reasonable time to do that work.
I agree. You're gonna touch it, yeah, you wanna paint it. So, and if it's a part of bid, so if it doesn't call out to be painted, we don't own painting.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on PCO 55? Okay, if not, is there a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen PCO 55 1910 wood trim paint per RFI 164 in the amount of $10,021.98. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Those in favor of the motion, I'll poll the committee. David,
yes,
Luciana,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. Okay, last one, this PCO 56.
Yep, PCO 56 is for a WAP at wireless access point. These are the Wi-Fi routers around the building. There's a total of 10 of them. And during one of the coordination meetings with Retrofit, who's going to be, it's the IT vendor. So during one of the coordinations with them, with the electrician and the contractor, Retrofit mentioned that they do not own installing the wireless access points, and that's also not a service that they provide. They would have to outsource it to somebody else. And so rather than bring a third company in, they would probably be more expensive. They would have to mobilize on a new project. We asked the electrician to see if they could price it. There's other components to these, not just installation of the wireless access points, but there's a couple of cages to protect the wireless access points that are going to be in the gym to protect them from, basketball, getting hit by basketballs, etc. That was also not owned by Retrofit. And then in addition to that, we are providing 3-foot patch cables at every wireless access point. And that is going to go to like a junction box, and it's going to allow for, if in the future something happens with that Ethernet cable, you can just replace that 3-foot section rather than the entire line. That was something that was recommended by Retrofit. And so the total is for just over 4,500. And yeah, so here's a breakdown from the electrician, WJ Griffin, cages, patch cables, installing of the wireless access points.
Were there originally, did we have in the bid documents, were there wireless access points specified?
Yeah, so the bid documents, they show where the wireless access points were going to be, but they were not owned by the contractor. That was always going to be an direct owner vendor scope. And so Retrofit is providing the wireless access points. They're just not installing them. They are pulling the wire. They're doing the programming. But this scope, it wasn't specifically owned by Retrofit, and they also do not provide that service.
Retrofits pull in the wire, isn't it usually the wiring is by the electric?
I would have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
I thought the infrastructure was the infrastructure is definitely being done by Griffin, and I thought they were doing the pulling of the wires. Yeah, I could go back and confirm that.
Yeah, I've never seen where you have a patch cord to them. I mean, the cable rarely goes bad, but. All right,
Well, yeah.
yeah, so this is not additional. These are there's 10 access points in the building. We just never bought them. Well, we never bought installation of them.
Installation of them, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this PCO? If not, is there a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen PCO 56 additional wire access points in the amount of $4,583.67? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion,
Is there a second?
second?
Those in favor of the motion, I'll pull the committee. David,
Yes.
Luciana,
Yes,
Barry,
Yes.
and I'm yes also. Okay, so that's it on the, now correct me if I'm wrong, Al, but that's it on the PCOs.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizen comments? Okay, if not, is there any other new business? If not, then I'll make is there a motion to adjourn?
motion.
Second. Is
Second.
there a second? Those in favor of the motion, David,
Yes.
Luciana,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So thank you all very much for making the time to get through all of this. This does, having done this, this helps out the contractor as far as they're staying on their construction, with their construction schedule. And of course, the Board of Selectmen still will have to make their approval as well. But thank you very much for making the time so we can go through this. And we do have our regular meeting scheduled for next Monday night too, as a reminder.
All right. Is it
Next.
6:30?
Next Monday, the holiday.
Yeah, Columbus Day.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, at 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Okay, can you, is there a link already sent?
No, I haven't done that
Oh,
yet.
okay, okay, I thought I missed something, but okay.
No.
Yeah, I can do it. It's a holiday. I
Oh,
can do
good.
it.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I will be sending
Thank-
that out. Okay.
Thank you.
So long.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.